see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an atheist.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM, right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, July 10th, 2022. I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter5, and as usual, we have our co-host, Dread Pirate Higgs, on the show with us today. And hello. Our guests today are the Wombat, and that's it for today. I mean, last week we were really crowded, and this week we have three, but that's the way it goes.
It's
Digital
all law of
Freethought
averages.
That's right. Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you get the feeling that you're the only non-believer in your town, well, you're just not. Here in Knoxville, in the middle of the Bible Belt, we have a group of over 1,000 of us. And we'll tell you more about that after the mid-show break. Dread, what's our topic today?
Well, I thought we might dive into whether or not ignorance is bliss. Is that a myth? Does it have some practical advantages? And, when it's tied together with its corollary, which is ignorance is bliss, 'twere wiser, or 'twere foolish to be wise. Maybe the two of those work together in some synergistic way. So, but before we get into that, I wouldn't mind starting off with a little benediction for y'all.
Okay.
All right. Hail marinara, full of spice, the flying spaghetti monster is filled with thee. Tasty art thou among sauces, and blessed is the fruit of thy jar, tomatoes, although fools believe they are vegetables. Holy marinara, chief amongst toppings, save a plate for us now, and at about 6 o'clock when dinner is served, if you would be so kind.
Amen. Gotta make sure I get that right.
So how is everyone today?
Not too bad.
How you been for this last week?
Doing pretty well.
We're talking to me, everyone.
Yes. Wombat.
We're all doing good. Hey, I'm doing really good. I got a lot of stuff at work done. We had a long holiday. We came back, midweek to start up work again. And I felt like we did 2 weeks worth of work in 3 days. And I always feel really good when things are very productive and moving well. We have a lot of, I manage like 7 laboratories at our job. We have like 46 different instruments. Some of them break, some of them don't, have like bad standards. Some of them are out of control. We got everything back up and running again. And if not, we got the parts ready to get them fixed for next week. So I'm actually excited to get back to work and continue on the work that we did from the last, half week that we were on. I always feel really motivated and stuff like that. That's how I feel right now. Really
how's your disc golf? Any more of that going on?
Yeah, absolutely. To the point where I'm getting really bad calluses on my feet. So I have to actually like rest up
Really?
now. Yeah.
Wow. So you got to get the grinder on there.
I go out in Crocs now when I play. I go out and play in Crocs, get that comfort feel.
Perfect. How about you, Larry?
Well, I haven't been riding much. My motorcycle is still under wraps out there because of all the rain we've been having this week.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, I wonder if we're turning into a new tropical area with the monsoons and stuff with the global change. But I have been playing a lot of my Quest 2, playing some computer games, and of course working.
Larry, let me throw something out at you.
Sure.
Why not get a motorcycle simulator for your Quest and
I have
get all the
looked into
benefits?
it. I have not overlooked that possibility. I just haven't found one yet.
All right.
All right. So, well, I haven't been doing too much. I've been out to the shop a couple of times, and I got a whole bunch of slabs of birch wood from a big tree. So some of it's like, 2 feet across. So I've been processing all that so I can get some wood turning projects on the go. But other than that, just still waiting to get back to work. But on that, not knowing when any work is coming, I wonder if that is bliss. not knowing.
I like
the
it.
ignorance of when I work next is actually blissful. I actually think it's quite stressful.
Now, Dred, I
Yeah.
got a quick question.
Yeah.
When you asked for the birchwood, were you doing it in your pirate accent, and were you actually able to verify that it was the birchwood? Because maybe you were trying to ask for the best wood, and in the pirate accent they got it mixed up, and they're just like, "Oh, he's asking for the best wood." Give him some lava pine.
Well, I got the best of the birchwood, I think.
Nice. Best birchwood, please.
Yeah. So, so what do you think, Ty? Like, is ignorance bliss? Are there circumstances where you think that is an appropriate stance?
Ignorance has benefits, but I also think like ignorance is ubiquitous, and there's no real escape from it, because the more you learn, as I think we all are aware, the more we realize that there's far greater boundaries of ignorance around every kernel of knowledge that we have. And the more resolute that knowledge is, the deeper the ignorance around it becomes. And so as we learn in science, and as we learn in interactions with people, and every sort of phenomenon we study, we realize that the expanse of ignorance is huge. And there's some benefit that comes with it, because it'd be maddening to try to take it all at once. However, I feel like the real danger that comes with ignorance is that willful ignorance is harmful and dangerous. And I find that when we are aware that there is a point of ignorance, but choose to ignore it and pretend that's knowledge, that's when we have a problem. And so what I prefer is if we recognize that ignorance isn't necessarily a bad thing, that it does have some inherent benefits in that it points out to places where we need to take our knowledge to, but that we also don't try to confuse it or conflate it with knowledge itself, because we need to recognize when we don't know something for when we don't know something.
Right.
That's my thought.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. But isn't it often the case where people are not so much willfully ignorant, but that their worldview shields them essentially from acquiring new knowledge, and then becoming aware of that greater ignorance?
Yeah, and I do find that that is the case. But also, here's my other throw out. That worldview, or that fostering that that enables that worldview, plays on the human condition. And the human condition is one that is afraid of change, right? And also one that's afraid of recognizing when there's culpability on their part that they've made a mistake or an error. Like ego and confidence work hand in hand to give an assurance that what they're doing is the correct thing and that they shouldn't change course. And you can be raised in an environment that fosters that attitude, but it's really playing on the human condition. And I feel like if you were to appreciate ignorance for what it actually is, I don't know, for the value of that statement, and realize that confidence isn't necessarily on your side in most cases. In fact, it's ignorance and doubt that is on your side. Even if you were to move in an environment that was fostering that sort of attitude, you would reject it, because you have an appreciation for what I think is a better model to determine true things from false things. That would be my point. I do think that there's a worldview that supports it, but I think it plays on the human condition, and we can evolve in one lifetime, or at least through like interaction with people, to have a higher standard of thought.
Right. What do you think, Larry?
Well, I think first of all that we need to define the word ignorance. Ignorance is not stupidity; it's lack of information.
Right.
So I'm thinking that a person who was ignorant of the American political system might be happy right about now. But if they're any kind of knowledgeable about what's going on as far as the Supreme Court and the political parties and the conservatives versus the liberals, then they may not be very happy right now.
Interesting. Welcome, John Richards from across the puddle. How are you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit flustered, I suppose.
Oh, what's up?
Well, no, nothing serious. No, it's just that I've had.
I mean, your hair looks great.
Yeah. The accent's checking in. Everything's good. You're firing on all levels.
Yeah, you don't really want to hear about this. I've got a large family, and I'm the driver. And
Right.
I've been ferrying people backwards and forwards, and there's one in hospital still. And so she's recovering, but I'm a bit flustered. That's why I'm late. So there you go. I'm here now, though. What are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about whether or not ignorance is bliss, And of course, the larger saying is ignorance is bliss, twere it foolish to be wise. And so Ty had some interesting thoughts on how we should recognize ignorance as our friend, essentially, because it guides us towards expanding our universe of knowledge. So what might your thoughts be on that? Do you think it's a myth, or it actually has value?
It's an interesting saying, isn't it? And I've definitely got thoughts on it. I disagree with it on principle, because let's say you're in a jungle and there's a snake. Wouldn't it be better to have knowledge about that snake, whether it's going to bite you with a poisonous, toxin that could lead to your death, or alternatively, whether you might be able to skin it and barbecue it, enjoy it for your meal? So I think it's a bad saying. I don't think ignorance is ever bliss. I think knowledge is bliss, and ignorance is a threat, a danger, a risk. But I picked up on what Larry was saying, because there's no shame in ignorance. I mean, I don't know very much about, what shall I say, Russian ornithology, the birds of Russia, and it's not shameful, because I have no experience of the birds of Russia, and I had no motive to find out about the birds of Russia. They don't impinge upon my consciousness at all. So it's not the same as stupidity. Stupidity is willful ignorance. It's where you've had an opportunity to learn something which could benefit you, and you've turned it down. And so I think that there's no shame in ignorance unless you've chosen it.
Right. Ty, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I feel like ignorance is a lot like a nail, right? And it's really what you do with it that determines how dangerous it could be. Because you can lay them all on your carpet floor in front of your bed and walk over them every day. And that's a terrible use of ignorance. But you could also use it in a really good way to build a home, or direct yourself to make something very useful that you can build a good foundation of knowledge on top of. And it's all about the use of it. And it's one of those things where it's not so much a shameful thing to own a nail, or a shameful thing to have a nail, or to look at a nail, but it's a useful thing to recognize a nail for what a nail is and what its potential could be used for. And I feel like what we fail to do a lot of times is recognize that it's okay to be ignorant of things. In fact, you should admit when you are, because that gives you the opportunity to build knowledge on top of that, or use it in the right way.
There's an interesting thing. You might all have heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And, certainly ignorance plays a huge role in that a person is unaware of the degree to which they're ignorant of a subject, and yet profess a great deal of knowledge. So in that case, is that willful ignorance, or is that just, is that stupidity? Is that willful ignorance? What do you think? Give it up, Ty. What do you think?
I think it's a combination of all three of those things. I would think there's a play of some willful ignorance in there, because again, the human condition doesn't want to admit when they're wrong. There's some confidence in there as well. And we know also that there's the idea of things can be a lot more complicated under the title or the cover, but you can say, hey, I read a Wikipedia article on rocket science, and now I feel like I know it. It's like you haven't given yourself the appreciation to know all the nuances of it. And that's where I have a saying in our lab: you haven't fixed something until you purposely broke it and put it back together again. And it's a lot of people who haven't gone through that to fix it. Larry, I'm sorry, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
No, I was just going to talk about the word stupidity or stupid. To me, it's not willful ignorance. Willful ignorance can be just a religious concept, no matter what your IQ is. You can be a very smart person, but then be willfully ignorant of the way evolution works, because you just don't want to know, you don't want to get there, you don't want to go there, because it may shake your faith. To me, the word stupidity, it means low IQ. like if the technical or psychological word moron or idiot has certain technical definitions behind it to decide, depending on where your IQ lies.
Mhm.
And to me, if a person has a very low IQ, they are by definition stupid. So it lays on that kind of.
And that actually, that number is 60. If
Or
100
stupid.
is the average IQ, 60, below 60, you need help on a daily basis to, carry on normal life
Yeah, it's like that.
activities, right?
That doctor in Forrest Gump, when he held up the chart and said, "Your son's right here on the chart."
That's right.
He wasn't talking about willful ignorance.
Stupid is as stupid does.
That's right.
Any thoughts on that, John?
Well, I think this is tied up with the wish for certainty, isn't it? Because doubt is scary. Let's face it. If you don't know the answer to mysteries, then you're in a risky position compared to if you have that knowledge. And so we all have a sort of inbuilt, an innate wish for certainty. And sometimes we so desire certainty that we apportion it to situations where certainty is actually not available. But it gives us comfort if we claim that we're certain about something, because we've put behind us the possibility that it's a risky situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you get to a stage where your desire for certainty is so great you become dogmatic about knowledge, which you don't really have, then we see too much of that.
Right.
There's a lot of that about.
Yeah. Ty, you had your hand up.
I think John hits it right on the head. The whole pursuit of knowledge is to crush uncertainty. And uncertainty comes with a lot of fear, unscare, risk, whole bunch of stuff that comes with it. And the problem is knowledge is very difficult to ascertain. And so we take shortcuts. It's our human condition to want to try to find analogies and quicker ways to resolve pain, right? Or harm or risk. And we will replace knowledge with confidence, or we'll replace knowledge with comfort, or we'll replace knowledge with certainty on very weak foundations or very poor epistemologies, because it makes us feel as if we've quashed or squashed uncertainty. But the fact of the matter is, it's not a good replacement. Knowledge is really best suited for knowledge. There's really no other higher standard than that. It's just a very obscure thing. Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead, Larry.
I was just going to say, I was looking up the quote, certainty is overrated. Who said that?
Jesus.
I was thinking it was Christopher Hitchens or Dawkins, something like that.
Could have been.
But Sarah B. Anderson apparently has said it several times. So the thing about it is, you can be totally certain about things. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are very convinced and very totally certain that their God is real. And I'm talking about different people and different religions. Think of the most religious person you can in Christianity, the most pious person you can. Now think of that person in Judaism, that person in Hinduism, that person in 10,000 other religions. All of them are totally certain that what they believe is true, and they all contradict each other. So they can't be, but certainty is there.
Right.
And the thing on top of that, just adding, is like, not only are they certain, but they're all using the same method to reach their certainty. They're all saying, well, personal experience, my faith, then my holy book. It's like, well, you can't all be correct if you're all using the same method. What does that say about your method?
You know, I was thinking about this as well, is that, and this is where BS comes in, because, you know, if ignorance is bliss, BS can prevail, right? Because, you know, you don't discern between the potential for a thing to be true or not true, because you're blissfully unaware or don't have an appropriate methodology for determining it, or applying that methodology to determining what somebody says is true or not. And I mean, that could be certainly said for, I mean, the average pastor or priest in a church may be devout in what he says with respect to his beliefs, but then you may have evangelicals like Peter Popoff or televangelists who are really slinging BS. And the unfortunate thing is that their audiences are almost virtually the same in terms of this willful or this ignorance is bliss thing. So Ty, you had your hand up?
Go ahead, John. Or I
go ahead,
Okay.
Ty, and then John next.
Okay, sorry. I do feel like there is ignorance, which is just, the base level nail. You can use it for anything you want. You have willful ignorance, which is, hey, I don't care if this nail's bad for me. It makes me comfortable to use it. But that puts you into a position where, as Dread Pirate was pointing out, where you could potentially become a victim to predatory ignorance,
Right.
which is wielded by people who are aware of the BS, but know that there's a profit or a benefit in exchanging it with people who are willfully ignorant to get some sort of power or money or attention or something like that. And I say that ignorance is malicious, that's predatory, but you have an opportunity, if you're listening to this or if you're out in the world, to not be a subject to that kind of treatment by just simply raising your standard for knowledge and appreciating it more and being able to do the work necessary to realize that uncertainty, even with knowledge, is an okay thing. And uncertainty, while scary and uncomfortable, is informative and is still useful.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Well, I can't help
I'm unmuted.
about the child who's unable to sleep at night because of the thunder, and so there's a question: what is that thunder, Mummy? It's scary, and so this is where we need to know the difference between an answer and a response.
Right.
You almost got.
Because
American English would be different between an answer and explanation. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Response
There
and
you
explanation is the same thing in England, so it's all good.
Yeah. So I see there's someone on the phone. Who?
Hello, that's me.
Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Reason.
For the listening audience, can you give us your name?
Within reason. That's my
Right. Yeah. You've been on here before a couple of weeks ago, I think. Right?
Welcome.
Or was it last week?
thanks. Yes, I think so.
So I don't know if you caught what the topic is, but we're talking about whether or not ignorance is bliss, and if you have some thoughts on that.
Well, I did. It just reminds me of something that I've probably heard Larry mention. I've probably seen it on his website, the Digital Freethought website. I've probably seen it on our Facebook groups as well, the atheist Facebook groups, that, it's the biggest, I think it was, I can't think of the British guy's name that, like one of the four.
Richard Dawkins.
Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins?
Dawkins, thank you, Larry.
Huh?
He was saying that, it's like the biggest show business. Somebody help me out here. What was
the greatest
that?
show on earth, right?
That's right.
Mm.
Truly.
Yeah, that's interesting. And when I was talking about televangelists and priests who truly believe, it's interesting that the audience of one may chide and balk at the ignorance of the other group, not realizing that they're just as vulnerable. The other regards the other with a certain amount of disdain. How could you fall for that kind of thing? As one is saying to the other
When they have their own
they're
areas
both
of
they're both
unexplored ignorance.
Yes.
Yep.
Unexplored ignorance.
There's a really terrible human condition aspect that's biologically rooted in that the more someone is exposed to something, the more they become desensitized to it. And that applies to both, harms that could occur in nature or even the smell of someone's own farts. And I feel like what we're dealing with right now is like the smell, like BS and ignorance in that capacity is very much in the similar sense of like someone smelling their own fart to the point where they can't recognize their own malfunctions in life.
Yeah.
That it's not a big deal anymore.
They don't realize if you smelt it, you dealt it. That kind of
What are you trying to say there, Dred? Yeah,
I wanted to finish. Sorry,
John.
I wanted to finish my distinction between answer and response, because if you, I mean, both can be useful, because early man didn't know actually what did cause thunder. We do now.
Mm-hmm.
But to give the frightened child who can't sleep a response, you know, like it's Thor hammering in the sky, solved the problem. The child could then think, Mummy knows what is this noise, and I'll be able to sleep now that she's explained it to me. But the answer is something quite different from
real answer,
from that response.
And just a disambiguation from that, I like the idea that a kid could get an answer, which is similar to like a response, which is sort of like a dismissive way of like brushing over a more complex situation. But what we really like in science is explanations to explain things. And those are descriptions of a system or a methodology that caused some sort of phenomenon that we can observe, and we can test the explanation to find the best explanation, because maybe even the first one wasn't the best one we can work with. And it's the weird thing about explanations is that they're never fully comprehensive, because they tend to introduce new concepts and new systems with them that we can better understand, which cause us to re-examine the explanation that we have and constantly find new ideas. So yeah, we may know how thunder works, but now we know how to cause thunder inside copper wires in a sense, or lightning, my bad. And we can use, I can go to a gift shop and buy like a little container thing that has a little lightning bolt sort of thing if I touch it, because we understand that phenomenon well enough that we can itemize it and commodify it. And maybe there's other aspects that we can cause lightning in the future and stuff like that. I just feel like that's a demonstration of us mastering an explanation, and not just working with a response or an answer.
Right, of course. And you know, we tend to chase rabbits. You know, when something catches our attention, we tend to run with it. And if we're in the pursuit of knowledge, that of course has great benefit. And if we're in pursuit of you know, less less things like a religion or whatever, again, we cling to those things. You know, we're very fond of our beliefs.
Right? We just get explanations rather than understandings, because you can't understand how God made the universe or God made miracles happen. It's just you feel like you understand it, but you really don't understand it. Anyway, we're at the bottom of the hour and we need to go for a break real quick.
We'll wait. John, you'll be first up when we come back.
Okay,
stay tuned for the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM in Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's talk just for a second about the Atheist Society of Knoxville. ASK was founded in 2002, and that's over 20 years ago. We have over 1,000 members, and we have weekly in-person meetings at Knoxville's Old City at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria. Look for us inside at the high top tables, or if it's pretty weather, outside on the deck. We also have Tuesday evening Zoom meetings. If you'd like to join us there, email us at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org or at letschatse@gmail.com. You can find us online also just by searching for Knoxville Atheists. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and search for a group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. And Dred, where you want to pick up?
Well, you know, I was just curious. Does the pizzeria you guys meet at have a basement?
Probably.
Well, no, but they have an upstairs.
That was crude. My apologies. But, well, we were talking about whether or not ignorance is bliss, and I suppose not knowing whether or not the pizzeria has a basement is, ties into that. But John, you had some comments that you wanted to make with respect to that.
Yeah. I just wanted to expand because we were talking about answers and responses, and then Ty brought in explanations. So I wanted to try and define these a bit more tightly. I think that a response is just something that follows whatever the question was. It doesn't actually have any connection to it necessarily. It could be, what's the expression? A non sequitur.
Right.
And whereas an answer does have some bearing to the question. I mean, it's like 4 is the answer to 2 + 2.
Right.
But an explanation goes a bit further because that provides some sort of mechanism that describes how the answer is arrived at.
Right. So how 2 + 2 becomes 4.
Why is that the case? Prove it.
Yes, indeed.
Well, one thing we need to keep in mind is a response is just a response. I mean, 5 is a response to what is 2 + 2. It's the wrong response, but it's still a response.
Yes, exactly.
Within reason, you had some thoughts that you wanted to share. Are you there?
Hello.
There you are.
Hello again.
Hey.
I experienced the personal proclaimments of people of religion, and we all do on a daily basis. And it's like, what, I cannot, I just have to go along. I just, in my day-to-day life, but in my mind, I'm thinking, how much do you believe of that? I mean, it's got to be this deep indoctrination of someone that it's way out of the comfort zone if they're going to question their mind and their thinking and their beliefs. So I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, you had mentioned, about snake oil and people selling snake oil willfully.
Oh, absolutely. Who was that? Dawkins, right, Larry?
Yep.
I guess so. Was it Barnum said it pretty much?
A fool
the circus. A fool was born every second.
Minute.
Every minute. Yeah. But
This is what
it's willingness to believe stuff that you're told without proper examination.
That's faith in a nutshell.
They're children and they're babies, and so they have no choice. It's almost like a cult.
Yeah,
it is a cult.
You think about a movie, right? And there's a thing of the suspension of disbelief. So we go walk into a movie, Superman or something like that, and we know that humans can't fly, and we know
Harry
that
Potter,
or Harry Potter. Yeah, exactly. So there's a degree to which we willingly suspend our disbelief in order to find entertainment in things that can't possibly be true in the real world. But it would certainly seem the case that the suspension of disbelief is also it can be indoctrinated, in the case of people who believe in very strange claims without any justified evidence for them. How do we help people recognize that they've gone to a theater and that's where they are? Let's go to Larry first. He had his hand up, and then we'll go to John.
It was like some of it is just so obvious to people who have once been in religion and now aren't. They understand it. But like yesterday, I was talking to somebody on Facebook, and he literally asked me, well, how can you explain that magic doesn't exist and miracles don't exist if it says right in the Bible that Jesus was the Son of God? I mean, they don't realize it's just a story. I mean, can you also say the same thing about Superman and Spider-Man and Mother Goose and all this other stuff? It's just a story in a book.
Right. John?
Yeah. Well, what we need here is more fact checking.
Right.
Yes.
And skepticism.
Yes.
Bring on fact checking.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, and that's a failing in today's journalism, is that they've scaled back on fact checking staff. You know, as you know, and it may be just a change in technology from, you know, newsrooms to, you know, people sitting at their computers and, you know, composing their news that way. You know what I mean? There's lots of great sites you can go to, like Snopes and such things too. But, you know, how do you get people to want to do that? You know, to overcome their willful ignorance, as it were, to actually try to discern whether the things they believe are grounded in reality and justified.
But I'm going back to the human condition. Journalism has largely been an arm of marketing and businesses that are trying to attract viewers. And so the major concern for a business is to make profit. And the major concern for a market is to attract people to eventually buy or sell ads, not to give journalism. And so it's a disinterested party in the nature of truth. It is very much an interested party in the controversy or attracting viewers or keeping people engaged through clicks or views or impersonalities. And so we ourselves are subject to being these kinds of people who like to see the spark and the flare and not care about the really murky situation that comes with good, honest journalism. And BBC, for example, good example of that, but we don't have a tap on BBC usually in America. We only have like NPR here in the States, which isn't as an exciting thing and doesn't report on the hourly basis. It does the day after and only on the day after for news that's already been around for 24 hours. And it's always told in a very passive tone. And you don't see any of the people with all the blur and the bokeh and the face paint and the makeup. It's just very dry news, but people don't like that. They like the more exciting stuff. I think that's a human thing.
Yeah. John?
While Ty was saying all that, I was thinking he was describing the job of journalism, which is to attract an audience and to sell stuff and gather money.
That shouldn't be the job of journalism. That's the job of a marketing. They use journalism as a layer on top of that. It's a cherry on top of a really terrible cake.
Yeah. Okay. As the owner of a news channel,
you're not marketing anything.
I agree with you. No, I'm not getting any money for it either. I agree with you because news should merely be a reporting of the facts without any opinions attached to it, without any intention behind it other than to disseminate the facts. But while you were saying that, Ty, about how journalism has come to be this tool to influence people, I was thinking the Bible. That's what it is. It's a tool to influence people, to gather an audience, to take money off them. They're not called sheep for nothing. It's because they get fleeced. So what I want to say is that it's a shame that humans love narrative. We love it above actual evidence. You know, the juicier a story is, the more avidly we'll read it. And if it's boringly reported as a bullet point list of facts, it's not interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
I was going to open it up to Within Reason to see if you had anything to say about that. We see you're on.
Oh, hey. So I think peer pressure to stay within that known comfort zone is paramount and huge for people. I mean, you know, I mean, being an atheist is a lonely experience. We're out there. We don't really have that sense of community or belonging. I mean, we're working on it by doing things like this. This is fantastic. But you know, I feel isolated. Like, you know, it's you know, I'm trying to go to meetups and get out and socialize, but you know, they're coming. point where there's that distinction between us.
Yeah. No, I certainly get you. As a Pastafarian, of course, I come out in a much different way than a typical atheist, especially if I'm walking around town with my tricorn. People kind of say, "You believe what?" I mean, you believe in a flying spaghetti monster? I mean, come on, are you serious?
We make putts.
And at times I've turned to them and I said, "What, you believe a God sacrificed himself to himself, because he made people flawed,
because he couldn't think of a better reason."
Exactly.
Yes.
It's an interesting thing. And I was talking about, the movies and about stories and the suspension of disbelief. As a younger man, I went to film school. And so I learned a great deal about how to make movies. And it actually ruined me for my ability to suspend disbelief in a film. And so I can't watch superhero movies anymore because I cannot let go of the fact that the physics doesn't work, or that kind of a universe. It just doesn't bring the same level of entertainment because it doesn't reflect a reality I've become more aware of, I guess. How do you guys feel about that? Ty?
You've got to do that willing suspension of disbelief, as someone was saying.
Yes.
I want to throw out a couple of things. One, I like the idea that we've clearly defined answers, responses, and explanations. And I also want to throw out another one, claims, because I feel like claims are essentially a bunch of responses, more or less, that don't necessarily could have weight, but are related to the topic at hand, but have no evidence to support it or haven't been demonstrated to. And the Bible is just nothing but a book of claims. So that when people say, well, this verse said this, it's like you're just pointing at a claim. There's no evidence there. And as John Richards really very, very well point out, we love narrative, but we don't love evidence. And we need to get those two swapped around to where we care about the evidence more.
Well, and just before I turn it over to John here, the greatest story about ignorance being bliss is the Garden of Eden, right?
Yeah.
That was life with God was in total ignorance. And it wasn't until they ate the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The snake gave advice to a nudist.
Yeah, the Bible is written from the perspective or from the spin of a complete tyrant. So it sounds like that's awesome. But if you told me that I was raised in a garden, I was like, your job's to name the animals. And I'm like, I see a line of ants. And I'm like, okay, Tim, Alan, Peter, Darius. And I'm doing that for the rest of my eternity. It's like, this is terrible. Please let me eat some fruit off a tree, naked lady. Show me where it is. I'll happily eat it.
John, you had your hand up.
So would I.
And Larry next.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to tell you guys that I've got to go shortly because I'm on taxi duty and they've just rung me or texted me to say it's time for me to collect them. But before I go, I want to make the point that you said when you meet people who mock you for believing in a flying spaghetti monster, and then you ask them about the silly things they believe in their Bible, what they're claiming is my fantasy is better than your fantasy.
Exactly. Who's got the more convincing delusion, right?
Yes.
And it's the one you believe in.
See you, John.
Thanks.
See you
Thanks
guys.
for coming, John. We'll see you next week. Oh, we'll see you later today.
Yeah. See you, John.
Yeah.
Larry,
There's also a website called God of the Day. Isn't that what it's called? You can look up all the different religions all over the world. And every day they have a God of the Day.
God of the Day.
Something like
I've never
that.
seen it.
I like that.
I will check that out.
Larry, it gives you a
Larry,
better chance of getting into the afterlife, right?
Well, the thing about the Garden of Eden is we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that it was punishing us for gaining knowledge.
Yes.
I mean, we were supposed to stay in total ignorance, but when we decided, well, let's just say we got knowledge, we came on that. He punished us. I mean, that was the whole thing behind it.
And not just punished, but didn't explain the rules or gave us the capabilities to understand the rules first, then punished us after we understood what the rules were.
We couldn't, they couldn't have,
SmackDown.
What is this trap built for paradise?
That disobedience was wrong until after they ate the apple, which gave them the knowledge
Right.
of the difference between right
Yeah, they
and wrong.
couldn't know they were doing anything wrong before they had the knowledge.
Right.
Of
It's
good
it's a
and evil.
Right,
story
right,
from a
good and evil.
tyrannical, crazy person that people refuse to recognize for what it is, and that willful ignorance really drives me crazy.
There you go.
I also want to throw out one other thing too. The
Yes,
Bible
sir.
didn't have to be exciting. Like we said, we like narrative more than evidence. It could have just been God made everything the way it needs to be, the end.
Right.
Bible could have been like one sentence, and it's not. In fact, we have to have floods, we have to have lion pits, there has to be people dying on crosses, there has to be wars, because that's what keeps people engaged. But I think a true honesty, a true telling of like history, or like a true evidential aspect of how things could have happened, would have been just very like, no, it's these mechanics that were set in motion, and then you wait 14 billion years and you end up with a planet that looks like this. That's basically it.
Yeah.
Here are all the equations, here are all the formulas. It's as dry and simple as that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Larry.
One thing that one of my biggest problems with the Garden of Eden thing is that God is supposed to know everything, and he's supposed to be everywhere.
Right.
Now, first of all, why wasn't he there when humanity needed him the most? I mean, this is the point where he has to punish all of humanity for the rest of time, and he was nowhere to be found. Also, he should have known the outcome before he even made them. If he knew everything, future and past, he knew it was going to happen. So to me, it just sounds like a big trap, that he was setting a trap, knowing what was
It's a
happening,
trap.
and we
He's a
fell into
crazy-
the trap, and then he could do what he wanted to. He's an evil
It's the-
dictator.
Of all the gods to worship, it's one of the most
Yes,
gods,
the
most
dictator.
horrendous gods. It's a crazy god. Like if you truly like were a Christian and you're like, well, God's so good, it's like you've not read the Bible and paid attention. Like that's the problem.
true.
You're fostering an environment where you weren't allowed to be critical on your thought. And when I was in college, I loved God. I was all about him, and it wasn't until I took an ethics class and I realized that morality isn't what's in the Bible. It's a completely different thing that requires explanation for how to treat people. That I was like, the Bible's not moral. Holy, oh my gosh, these guys aren't moral. The God isn't moral. Whoa, I need to take a step back and rethink this. And that was when I read the Bible again from beginning to end, and I realized this isn't for me. I can't call myself a Christian.
And blind obedience.
You started to see the man behind the curtain.
I did. But Within Reason made a really good point. She said she felt very lonely as an atheist. I say to this, I never felt more lonely as a Christian when I realized that the book that I was reading wasn't speaking to me spiritually. When I felt that disconnect, like when I lost that ignorance of bliss, I realized I feel very lonely as a Christian, because now I can't talk to other Christians because I feel like I'm missing something. I can't talk to this God that I've had a relationship with because I don't feel like we're connecting anymore. And I have no idea what even atheism is, but I just know they're the devil. I felt more lonely in my life. But now that I'm fully as an atheist, it's like when I see someone admit they're an atheist, I don't have scorn for them. I'm like, that guy had almost my same experience, or I recognize that person, or I respect that person. And I feel like we start on a better foundation for connection than we would if I was a Christian meeting another Christian and we were both like, hey, we're friends, but don't hang out with that guy because that guy's a complete jerk, you know? Like I feel like atheists get a head start in my book in terms of like knowing them very well. Yeah.
Well, again, we have to be careful on the definition of an atheist. An atheist doesn't have sufficient evidence to support a belief or justify belief in God. It doesn't mean that one can't be spiritual, can't have a sense that there's aspects to the universe we may never be able to approach and answer. And certainly that's the case for me as a Pastafarian. I don't literally believe that there's a flying spaghetti monster, but it does act as an avatar for those aspects of the universe that I do find completely impenetrably mysterious.
If it makes you feel better, I do a quick noodle at the basket whenever I play disc golf, as like an offering to the noodle lord, and it does help my putts. And I can tell you, that's all I need it. That's all I need it for. So like, I'm totally fine with that.
All you need is sauce.
I throw the spaghetti out and that's it. When I train people how to play putt, I say, when you putt, you're supposed to make a pizza in the oven motion. I just say, throw the spaghetti on the wall. That's all you have to do. Just throw the spaghetti on the wall, and people do it, and they make their putts too. So I'm saying there's some magic behind there.
I was going to ask, within reason, So how long have you identified as an atheist?
My parents raised me completely without any indoctrination whatsoever. So never.
Oh, okay. Now, so, I mean, you kind of indicated being alone. Like, is that in the face of being ensconced in a community of Christians, or?
Yes. Oh, yes, totally. In a red state where I live. However, I live and I work in two different areas. I'm in a blue municipality, but I'm in a red state where I live. So
yeah, same here.
Wow.
Not the same
it
here,
must be tough,
but I do work in a science environment, and that's really nice.
Yeah. Well, you know, for myself, I live in a really small community, about 6, maybe 8,000 people, and we've got probably 30 churches.
Wow.
The largesse of them, maybe 28 of them being Christian. So I can certainly identify with how tough it is to sort of come out with a belief system or lack of belief system that doesn't jive with the one that's the sort of general one in the community. But I've been at this for 6 years, and people look forward to my entry in the parade. So we had Canada Day, and I drove around in the SS Quab, or the SS Blueberry, I should say, which is my little blue Audi. And we had a blast, and there were people lining the streets saluting and going "Arr" and give us some pasta and bless us as pastaness and all that kind of stuff. So it's actually been kind of fun, more recently anyway.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I guess we're coming up on towards the end of the show here. So just wondered, Ty, where can we find your stuff? You got any last
You can find
plugs?
myself on YouTube. Feel free to check out Let's Chat on YouTube. I think it's just literally just Let's Chat. And feel free to leave a comment. We'll go over them in future episodes of the show.
Cool. And how about you, Within Reason? Do you have anything going on that you want to plug?
not really. We do have meetups. I went to the East Nashville Brew Works on Trinity Lane, and that's where I met Fabiola a couple of weeks ago, and I'm so looking forward to that again, and hope people in the Nashville area will come out.
Perfect.
Very cool.
Yeah, well, you can find my stuff. I live stream this on my YouTube channel, Mind Pirate, and so I do that because I'm in Canada on the West Coast. For me, it's 7 a.m. bright and early,
Wow.
Pacific Daylight Time. So you can find my stuff there, and if you like it, subscribe and put up the notification bell, and you'll know when new stuff comes on. I also do the Global Atheist News Review at 11 a.m. PDT on Sundays as well. And how about you, Larry?
What was Within Reason going to say? Go ahead.
I just asked, where is that Global Atheist Review?
It's on YouTube. Yeah. So
Thank you.
just type in, it's under Freethought Productions. And that's the one that John Richards, he's the host for that one.
Very cool.
Yeah.
My content can be found at digitalfreethought.com. Be sure to click on the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject. You can go to also my YouTube channel, which can be found by searching for Larry Rhodes, Doubter5, or Digital Freethought, either one. And I have a book on Amazon called Atheism, What's It All About? If you're curious, that's a very good place to start. By the way, if you're a member of the clergy, but you have come to see that claims of religion are not justified, and you're losing your faith, but don't know where to go in for help, well, there's the Clergy Project. This project actually will help people who are still practicing their pulpit preaching, as it were. Just go to clergyproject.org and they'll help you through the transition. You can find this show on Apple iTunes, Pocket Casts, Amazon, and podcasts everywhere. Just search for Digital Freethought Radio Hour. Thanks for joining us. Remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. And also remember that everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life. And we'll see you next week. Say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ramen.